Hello and welcome to episode 2 of WOSFL Weekly. Made it to episode 2. Episode 1 must have went down all right. I'm your host, Jonny Baillie, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Government Manager and my good friend and just all-round good guy, Dean Keenan. Dean, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Jonny. Thanks for the introduction. I enjoyed last week and you've made it to week 2, so here's hoping for a week 3. Here's hoping.
Absolutely. Listen, we're really excited to be streaming live on YouTube for the first time. And if you're watching along, please feel free to get involved. Happy to take any comments or questions for myself and Dean, either about the weekend's games or about what's going on in the West of Scotland Football League in the last week. Just keep them clean. That's all we ask. And before we get started, just a reminder, we are brought to you by Pyramid Promotions and your number one source for everything Scottish football. And if you're enjoying the up content that we've been putting out over the last couple of weeks, you can support us by becoming members, and it really would make a big difference to us. It'll help us maintain a consistent level of content, make sure we maintain high standards, and bring you as much coverage of all levels of Scottish football as we possibly can. Secondly, big shout out to our sponsors, VSN Sports. Loads of clubs across the West are already utilising their services, and we'd love to try and help them increase that if you can. So if you're on the lookout for some bespoke teamwear for your club, then get in touch with the guys at VSN. Dino, I think VSN would do a good job with the blue and black of Girvan. Do you not think?
We do have VSN, Jonny. Aye, we've got VSN kit. That's what we use. Scott managed to get the VSN stuff in the summer, and it will look resplendent in the blue and black. Aye.
Good. I like the blue and black. Blue and black. I mean, I think you obviously, myself and you played with Troon in blue and black. It's always been a colour combo that I like, I favour. It looks good. Looks good down there.
It does. I like the blue and black. Like the old Inter Milan, isn't it? You know.
Aye, absolutely.
Maybe the quality.
maybe. I was thinking more of Bury or somebody like that. They play in blue and black, don't they? Right. Okay. So moving on to the weekend's fixtures, we'll get stuck in. Right, Dino, the most prestigious cup competition that we have in the West of Scotland. Okay, the Cup Winners' Shield result on Saturday. Whitburn 1, St Cadoc's 0. What do you think of that? Outstanding game and an outstanding competition.
Aye, but listen, of course it is, and I think the thing for me, Jonny, is that the winners actually get into the Scottish Cup.
I know.
Next year, so
aye,
there obviously is a. Listen, it's a made up trophy, of course it is, but the fact that these guys have then get the opportunity to get into the Scottish Senior Cup, and for St Cadoc's, you know, obviously it's been we'll probably maybe touch on it later about the kind of turmoil that they've.
Well, we can touch on it now, Dino, if you want. We'll go it because we'll just go.
Aye, well, listen, it's for them. Like that's a game that they've got to win, you know. And
aye,
obviously they've changed their management in that. But Whitburn, they've had 1 win in 5 in the league, sitting kind of just not far off the front in the league. But they've had 1 win in 5, so that's a game that St Cadoc's have got to win. And you know, it's dead easy to make excuses about the manager leaving and a change of circumstances, perhaps in terms of finances. But I don't buy into all that. Players that St Cadoc's have got to be good enough to go to Whitburn and win. And the guys that the Martins brought in and the guys that have been there previously, you know, they've joined St Cadoc's for a reason, so they've got to be able to see that through, even if Martins obviously decided to step aside. But I thought it was obviously I'm a West Region man, and I would have hoped that they would have beat Whitburn. But listen, credit to Whitburn. I don't know much about the game, but they managed to win the game 1-0. And hopefully they get a good account of himself in the Scottish Cup next year. But for me, St Cadoc's, I think it's pretty poor, to be honest.
The only thing for me as well, like, if you're looking at it from St Cadoc's point of view, now I know it's all changed with the manager leaving and stuff, but there you've lost 2 Saturdays to this cup, and then they've had to play Auchinleck on Wednesday night and get turned over quite comprehensively, which has then contributed maybe to Martin leaving his job. You know, I'm sure they would rather have it cut that Auchinleck game on the Saturday and give them a chance to prepare properly rather than having to prepare for a Wednesday night game against an Auchinleck team that's going really well at the minute.
I totally agree, Jonny. And the thing for me with St Cadoc's is, and listen, this is an outsider's opinion, of course, and I'm no privy to what's going on, but see from the outside looking in, it's not a good look. You know, it's all right throwing money at clubs in the summer and throwing money at players and signing all these top players from different leagues and bringing boys in and all good money, which is an absolute fact. And then all of a sudden, halfway through the season, that, do you know what, we're going to go down a different route. And then after a couple of heavy defeats, the manager then decides to leave, you know. And I like Martin, and I know that, as again, this is just an outsider's opinion, but it just seems a wee bit not right for me that all of a sudden he's leaving and the club's in a wee bit of a free fall. You know, there's been lessons surely learned for people before at clubs, about bringing money in and spending money that they don't have and living out with their resources. So for me, I don't have any sympathy with them, mate, to be honest. I think that it's pretty poor and I think they should have done better.
I think the thing that people always level at teams like St Cadix is obviously because they don't have their own park and they don't have a big support base. Or, you know, I know they've got a really good structure in terms of youth teams and things like that, but you need to be able to sustain these things if you're gonna really go for it. And I think when the bubble bursts, it's dramatic. You know, and I think that's maybe I don't know what we'll see, how we'll see them next year. I don't even know where they'll be looking in terms of managerial appointments for next year, because it's a completely different kettle of fish for what it was in the summer, where you had money to spend and you could go out and sign pretty much within reason whoever you really wanted. But it's going to be very different for whoever the new man coming in is.
It's going to be tough. But we shouldn't be surprised, you know what I mean? They've done that in every single division that they've went through. So far, they've signed the best players for the best money, and then all of a sudden they get to the top league. They're on the cusp of probably achieving what, I don't know what their end mean is, you know what I mean? Martin had them as close as anybody will ever have them achieving success in terms of winning cups, winning trophies, challenging for leagues. I just don't understand it, mate, to be honest. And like you said, with the infrastructure and that, you know, they play at a stadium that's not theirs, and you've got good Premier League clubs last year. Rob Roy, obviously they were playing elsewhere, but Arthurlie get relegated last year, made the Scottish Junior Cup final. They've got their own stadium, they pay their own bills, they've got their own overheads, and they've got a good squad of players, but they can't sustain the level. Whereas you've got these clubs coming in, and obviously they've got their own ideas of how things go. But it just doesn't sit right with me, that, Jonny. So like I said, and I echo again, I like Martin, and I like people that work at the club, but I've got no sympathy for them. You know, we're at an honest level of football, and if you're dishonest regarding stuff, then it's going to bite you in the backside at times.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think you and I are probably on the same page in terms of we're a bit traditionalist. I think I always say to be PG about the kind of old traditional junior clubs that you like to see doing well. Anyway, we'll move on to the Scottish Cup, the real biggest competition in the West in terms of the Junior Cup quarter final. Johnston Borough 0, Irvine Meadow 0. Johnston Borough win 4-2 in penalties. Spoke to Greg, one of the coaches at Johnston Borough today, and he was telling me they weren't really satisfied with how they played. They had enough of the ball, but didn't really do much with it. Meadow were set up well to play on the counter, but they just never played well. I think they're having a wee bit of bother with the pitch probably at Johnston as well, which was maybe a wee bit of a leveller. But it's all about getting in the hat, isn't it? And that's what they're in. They're now in the semi-finals. And looking at the other teams that are in it, Largs, Drumchapel, Camelin and Trinent have still to play. You'd probably say Johnston Borough are probably just favourites for the Scottish Cup, wouldn't you?
Aye, the fact that they're through and there's still Camelin and Trinent to play, I'd agree with that. I was rooting for Meda at the weekend, to be honest. I was hoping that Jamie would have went there and turned over his old team, you know what I mean? I think obviously he's obviously had a great spell there, and then they get the money and things changed a wee bit. But I would have liked for him to go back there and win, in all honesty. But as it turns out, you know, Murdy, yet again, just chips away, gets the job done, and him and his coaching staff, you know, credit to them. And in cup football, Jonny, as we all know, it's all about winning, and they managed to get through to the next round. Camelin Trinent, you know, two top sides. Camelin spent again fortunes this summer. Alan Moore, top manager, worked at a great level, played at a good level. And they'll be big threats, but listen, the Borough have got to be considered favourites. Largs, Arnie always seems to get his teams around there or thereabouts, you know, and they'll be there or thereabouts again. But for me, as you said, Jonny, Johnston Borough have got to be strong favourites.
I'd probably say they are favourites, but on on the flip side of that, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of those other teams win it. You know, it's not like you're looking that there's a team maybe for the lower levels that's managed to get themselves in the semi-finals or whatever. I would say any of those kind of four, although it's 5 just now, but any of those 5 would be more than worthy winners, and you wouldn't be surprised to see any of them win it.
Aye, listen, I agree. I totally agree. Obviously, Trent's away into the Lowland League and that, so from a West of Scotland Football League perspective, hopefully they don't win it. So hopefully one of the other 4 teams win it. But listen, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of them win it. You know, I wouldn't be surprised. Trent, Camelin, obviously Camelin as well. But I hopefully I'll be rooting for the 3 teams for the West, and hopefully they can make it an all-West final.
Give us your final and winner then, Dino. Go.
So I take it it's just that it's an open draw so far. There's not been drawn yet.
No, I don't think so. If it has, I'm sorry.
I think if you beat Camelin, you win the cup. I think if you beat Camelin, you win the cup. I think
you'll beat Johnstonborough in the final.
It could be, depending on the draw. But if you beat Camelin, I think you've got a good chance of winning the Junior Cup.
Cool. Okay, good man. Okay, so moving on to the Premier League. By the way, we've got 25 people watching us on YouTube, which is class. So if you're watching and you agree or you disagree with anything that Dean and I are saying, then feel free to get involved. Results in the Premier League this weekend: Beath 0, Troon 5, Benburb 0, Auchinleck 5, Darvel 1, Pollock 2, Drumchapel 2, Glenafton 0, Hurlford 0, Gartcairn 0, Shotts 2, Largs 4, Cumnock 0, Clydebank 2. We'll start with Beath just because of the managerial change there with Chris Strain leaving. What's your opinion on that? What's your thoughts on that, Dean? Chris deciding to leave? Again,
obviously, listen, from the outside, looking in, I've no idea why he's decided to leave. I've seen a couple of messages saying that he's decided to leave because he's given so much in that. But you know what the West of Scotland Football League rumour mill's like. You know what I mean? And whether it's Johnstonborough, Pollock, or even back at Cowan, I've heard this week for Straney. So, aye. Listen, what will be. It's his decision. He's made his own decision. What I will say is that if you'd offered Beath the position that they're in 3 years ago when he took the job, they'd have bought their hand off. So he's done a terrific job there. And I wasn't surprised to see the result yesterday. You know, I wasn't surprised. They've obviously, I see that they named 3 subs, you know. So
no Ricky Little. I don't think he's played since Christmas time. If their website's up to date, and Callum Graham wasn't playing as well, two massive players for them.
Well, that's a spine in it. Right? The centre half and the centre forward, probably the best centre half and probably the best centre forward. But what he did there with Josh Fowler, lost Josh, brought in Diver, lost Diver. You can't keep replacing these players. You know what I mean? And sometimes you're not going to be able to do that, and I think that's the case for Beath this season. They've not been able to replace the goals. Ultimately, their best players are probably the most aged players. Look at Carlo Monti and Paul Fry's probably their best players. They're not getting any younger. So, listen, whoever goes in there has got a rebuild job. I think Straney alluded to that when he resigned, that there's going to need to be a wee bit of rebuild there. So, I just think that for him, he's got his own reasons. Unlike other decisions, I don't think there's any self-preservation in that. I just think that he's maybe got to a point in the job that he's decided that he's best moving on for him and also for Beath.
No, I think I would agree, but I think I'd probably say the timing. I know they said in the statement that he was going to leave he was leaving at the end of the season anyway, but I think for me, looking from the outside in, you're right. One unbelievable job he's doing, and I think. I would probably say where Beath are now is probably where they probably should have been the last couple of seasons, but Chris has elevated them to winning the league twice on the bounce. And you can see Chris wanting to push on and be more successful, and then pushing for, I don't know if he's pushing for the club to get licensed to move up the levels and all these kind of things, you know, and getting frustrated if that's not been the case. So maybe, I don't know if it's come to a head, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think I've heard, don't know if it's true, but I've heard Sean Dillon is going to take the team to the end of the season. That's what I've heard. And I just hope it doesn't fall apart, because I really like Sean. I think he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. And I just hope that results like yesterday's isn't the kind of regular from now to the end of the season.
Aye, Sean is a good guy. And if it is him, then I've got no doubt that he'll do a good job there. You know what I mean? I know that Sean's work situation sometimes can mean that he can't fully commit to. I know that certainly was maybe an issue previously at Kilburnley, so that might have changed. But I played with Sean. He was a top player as a player. He's had a wee bit of relative experience at management, and he's obviously been part of Straney's coaching staff there as well. So listen, they're a good club. It's a good place to go and play football. And listen, I totally agree with you with the timing as well. You could counteract my comments by saying, well, is there maybe a bit of self-preservation there that he's not going to achieve anything this year? They're maybe going to start to dwindle, and Straney's maybe looked at it thinking, I'll get out when my stock's still high. There is an argument for that. I don't believe that to be the case, but of course, you've got to be objective for these things. But for me, if it is Sean, then hopefully it kind of steadies the ship, so to speak, and hopefully he can get some players in.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Dean, because in the last 10, if you look at the form table of the last 10 games, they're actually sitting 14th in the form table in the last 10, so kind of third bottom, which is interesting. So things haven't really been going that well on the park on that respect. So it's interesting. Just a wee word on you and I's previous club, Troon. What a season they're having. Absolutely brilliant season. Move above Johnston Borough. They've played one game more, but Jimmy's done an incredible job there. And I think for me, the only question now is probably, can they then do that again next year? And this season doesn't become a fluke. That's the wrong word. That's a really wrong word. But it doesn't become a kind of outlier where they then revert down to the main kind of middle to bottom where they've been the last couple of seasons, or are they going to really push to get promoted next year? Because what a season they're having now. They've
been unbelievable this year. Unbelievable. I don't think the league position's a fluke, as you'd say. I don't think it's a fluke where they are at the moment. I'm a bit gutted with the cup campaign. Sorry, I believed that they would achieve something special with the cups this year. Especially when they were getting deep into competitions, and certainly the Scottish Cup. And I know that home defeat in the cup to Armadale is certainly one that leaves a bitter taste. But they've responded really well to that. Really, really well. To be sitting second in the league is just a phenomenal achievement so far. And I know the guys obviously there that I'm really close with. Jimmy's there, and he's obviously got his coaching staff and all the players. I'm buzzing for them. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, I'm a football man, Jonny. It's like when you're on the bench on a Saturday and the guy in your position's playing well. You want the team to win, but you want the guy in your position to play shite. You know what I mean? That's the kind of. So don't get me wrong. There's times where I look back with a wee tinge of jealousy that I'm not involved in it. Of course I do, and that's normal. But I love the fact that they're up there shooting high at the top of the league, and there's mega things to be achieved there. Troon have never finished any higher than 5th in that Premier League. So for them to finish in that top 4 for this year would be an unbelievable achievement, and I hope that they go on and do it.
Yep, definitely. And down at the kind of bottom end, we'll kind of stay up the top. Clydebank, I suppose this has implications at the top and the bottom. Clydebank getting a solid 2-0 win away to Cumnock, really kind of solidifying their place at the top of the table. Now sitting 13 points clear. I don't think MD's catching them. I think that's been the case for a wee while now. But Cumnock, in real bother, I would say, Dino. I was talking about the form. Last 10, they're bottom in form in the last 10. 1 win in the last 10, 2 out of 15. That's relegation form, you would say, wouldn't you? And I think they can only hope that the teams below them keep dropping points, because picking them up's been really difficult for Stephen Swift and the boys, hasn't it?
Oh, it's definitely relegation form. If you're sitting in that kind of position. I looked at all the Premier League results, Jonny, and I thought, probably the results probably what you would have kind of expected, and or there or thereabouts. And Clydebank going and getting a 2-0 victory. I've seen a save Andy Leishman made. I don't know what the score was at the time, but I've seen it it was an unbelievable save. And that's ultimately what you get when you buy quality and you bring in quality. And obviously Clydebank have done it in a manner that is probably befitting of them as a club. They've done it in the right way. They've built over the last 3-4 years. They've added a bit of quality here, there, and ever. And I think that what they've done this year is that they've strengthened from a real position of strength, which is really important earlier on in the season with the signings that they've made and the additional bits of quality that they've added. We played them up there earlier on in the Scottish Cup, and we went 1-0 up. We gave them a wee bit of fright first half. They managed to score for a mistake, and it was 1 each. And then obviously they ended up scoring late on to win 3-1. But I knew the quality that Moff had in the squad, and I'm not surprised to see them in the position that they are. And the dressing room, I think the dressing room probably runs itself there. You've got a lot of good players, top players. But for Cumnock, as you touched on, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll get over the line, but there's no doubt whatsoever that with the recruitment in the summer that they would expect it to be better. And I think Swifty will be the first to say that. I think the problem is for them is that they kind of, as an outsider, it looks as if there kind of a few individuals in there as well. There's not really much of a collective, but I think that's been the case for Cumnock certainly for a number of years now. I think that's been the real problem for them. And obviously the noisy neighbours either side of the area have been doing a wee bit better. So, but I think Cumnock will be fine. But it's a big one in that in the summer, because obviously there's the rumours of Straney and Swifty going to Pollock and that. And if that was to be the case, then Cumnock all of a sudden are left back at square one, or does Swifty or does Southie take the job there? You know what I mean? There's loads of questions to be asked, but certainly for me, Cumnock is a massive football club. Massive. They've got their own training facility. They've obviously got the pitch, which is Astro, they can use all the time. So should be doing better. And I think that Swifty was a great manager to go in there, and it's no happened this year. What I would like to see as an outsider, I'd like to see him stay there for another year and get in a bit more of the players that he's probably familiar with, and then really engineer something and work something there from Cumnock, because I think that he could do that. But I think they'll be fine. I think they'll stay up.
Aye, I think so, and I think you're right. I repeat this a couple of times when I've been on, that I saw something that the Cumnock chairman had issued to the fans in a newsletter, and he was talking about them being at the start of a project and things like that. So I hope that they do to stay up, keep Stephen in the job, which I'm sure they will, and then kind of build from there. You would like to see, but they'll need to pick up a few points between now and the end of the season, though, to keep them in it. Assuming they'll have games against the teams below them, round about them and stuff. Those will be the ones they'll be looking to pick up. Interestingly, Dino, I don't know how much you would put into this. So I was having a look through Clydebank's fixtures just towards the end of the season, and they've had 7 midweek games, 5 of them at home. That's a bonus, isn't it, for them? No, I'm not saying there's anything untoward going on, because their secretary is the chairman of the West of Scotland Football League. I'm not saying anything like that, of course not. But it's a fortunate benefit, isn't it? Really, you would have to say, because the only away games I think they've played is Shotts and Drumchapel, which aren't they too far, and the rest of the games, the midweek games, have been at home, including Troon having to go there next week or 2 weeks' time, and then Auchinleck having to go there as well. So when things like that fall your way, it's nice, isn't it?
It is, and it's an interesting comment, Jonny, because everybody that knows me knows that I'm very, very much pro Clydebank, that they're the club that, along with Paul, I want to really do well. But it was interesting, because I remember early in the season with regards to that Scottish Cup tie that we'd played about, and all the problems with Comet and the registrations and that. It was interesting that, the Kilsyth goalkeeper played on the Friday night against Greenock, and then all of a sudden he was back on the bench for Clydebank on the Saturday against us in the Senior Scottish Cup. So I've got no doubt that having Mr. Bamford in the ranks certainly helps with things like that. Not that I'm
as I said,
in any way that it was in towards.
We're not saying at all. And by the way, we're 100% not taking anything away from Gordon Moffat and the squad's achievements, because they've been outstanding this season.
They've been brilliant. And the recruitment.
Do you think they can go unbeaten for the whole season? They've got 11 games left.
I don't know. I don't. I think that Troon maybe beat them up there, and that's not just me with my Troon hat on. I think that I think Troon will beat them up there, but I think that I hope they'll get promoted. I think they'll get. They'll obviously go on and win the league. That's a given now for me. I think the league title's done, but I just hope they go on and get the promotion that they deserve, because that club's phenomenal. I've been on that journey with them. I remember when I went and played with Rob Roy and get against them, and the backing that these guys had, and then the people that they've got behind the scenes, Grace and everyone else at the chairlady and everyone else at the club. They're an amazing football club, and I really hope that they go on. And I think that as a West of Scotland Football League, what better representative could you have than them?
Mm-hmm. Aye, definitely. I think they go. Hopefully, they win that playoff and they go into the Lowland League, and I would 100% expect them to represent the West of Scotland really, really well in that Lowland League, up the top end, you would assume. Okay, if we move on to Darvel losing to Pollock. Darvel had picked up a few decent results recently, but are they maybe just running out of time down the bottom?
Possibly. You know, obviously the points and that and the deficit.
The games in hand. I mean, they've got 5 games in hand over Gartcairn. They've got 1 in hand over Shotts and Benburb, and they've got 2 in hand over Hurlford. They're 5 points away from Hurlford, so they can kind of jump up beside these teams as well. So it's just, I think when you've been bottom of the table for basically the full season, it's just trying to get that wee glimmer of hope into it to push you on.
It is, you know, and the thing for me with Davo, Jonny, is that so far they've won 3 out of 18. You know what I mean? So for them to stay up, you'd probably expect that they need to win. They've got 12 games remaining. They're probably going to have to win 6 of them. You've got to probably have to win half your games to stay up, you know. And of course, there's going to be games in there against you, like Gartcairn and Shotts, Benburb, maybe, perhaps. Obviously, I'm not familiar with the fixtures, but there's also going to be fixtures against teams at the top end of the league that I might be looking for stuff. What I would say is that throughout the year, I've really enjoyed listening to the interviews from Michael, the manager, and I've really enjoyed his honesty. And you know, you can see him how much it means to him on a Saturday. You know, and he's getting interviewed, and I think he's always been honest, and I think that's a really good sign. You know, sometimes you listen to his interviews, you think that's a bit hard hitting in his team, and the way that I reflect on that is that he's obviously got the most utmost respect from his team that he can come out there and speak so openly. And I remember when he came to Troon when he was the Ashfield manager, and they went down to 10 men and they dominated us. They beat us in the cup. They knocked us out in penalties, but they were magnificent that day. And so listen, whether it be the case that they've run out of games or whether no, I think that he's still got a really, really bright future in the game, and hopefully still at Darvo.
No, I agree with you. We played Ashfield when we were at Lugar, and they beat us fairly comfortably, and it was at Ashfield, so that you know what the park's like up there. It's not the best, but they played some really good stuff. So I've absolutely no doubt he's a very good manager, and it's just maybe, I don't know whether it was just maybe the wrong situation, if that makes sense, that he's found himself in, which is a shame. And I hope that, like you said, I hope they can get it turned around, because he's obviously a very good manager. Moving down, we've got Hurlford and Gartcairn drawing nothing each. I would say the point probably is welcome for Hurlford, but it didn't really do much good for Gartcairn. They're in real bother, aren't they now?
Again, the points deficit puts them behind the 8 ball as such, you know. They've won 8 out of 23, you know. That would have put them mid-table. And obviously with the points deduction, there's obviously players that were there that had the aspirations of maybe achieving something at Gartcairn and going and challenging for leagues, and then they've had to reshuffle their squad in that. So listen,
how would you approach that as a manager, Dino? So you're bringing players in to try and fight to be at the top end of a table and possibly competing for a title. With the squad they've built, they should probably be competing for the title, you would say, at the start of the season anyway. And then that happens and you're now in a relegation scrap. How do you think, you as a manager, how would you approach that?
You've got to be honest with people, and you've got to expect honesty back. You would have to sit down and speak to the players and say, listen, where's your head at here? Did you sign here to go and compete, or did you sign here because of me, because of the club? You know what I mean? Because there's no doubt in my mind that there's players that have signed there believing that maybe achieving something is what they wanted to do. Maybe they've had a career that they've not really challenged for leagues, and then also there's other ones that have said, no, Mick, I've signed for you. You know, I've signed for you. I want to play for you. So whatever happens here, I'll be with you. And I think that, listen, you've got to have honest conversations with people, but I think the honesty's got to come from the manager firstly and say to the players, so this is the reality is that we're not going to achieve anything this year other than staying up. If you see that as an achievement, then, and if you want to be with me, then let's do it together. But it's a difficult one. You know, obviously the point situation is a bit of a debacle in the start, and the withdrawal. I don't want to go too much into that. It's already been covered many a time by you guys, but I've got a wee bit of sympathy. But again, there's another club that's piling money into players and that. So all these clubs that kind of pay money that's out with their means, I don't have too much sympathy with them, to be honest.
Okay. And so if we move on to the first division now, do you know that will kind of cover the Premier Division? If we move on to the first division, results were Ardrossan 2, St Rochs 1. Blantyre Atherley was unfortunately abandoned. Cumbernauld 0, Kilwinning 1. Rob Roy 1, Maybole 1. Renfrew 0, Kilburney 1. Rutherglen 6, Ashfield 0. Vale of Clyde 0, Petershill 1. Just touch on Blantyre. John Kelly, Blantyre player, unfortunately I saw on Facebook that he'd suffered a seizure before the game. I think he'd put on social media on the Blantyre Facebook page that he was still in hospital, but he was feeling a bit better. So a horrible thing to see. Football pales into insignificance when things like that happen, doesn't it, Dino? And we wish him all the best and hope he recovers well.
Aye, Jonny, brilliant message. I seen Ant CD, the ex-Arthur player, had commented saying that it was his cousin and that he's in hospital and he's feeling a bit better. So, yeah, listen, football doesn't really matter when it comes to stuff like that. So, best wishes to the guy and hopefully he can get back. Hopefully he can get healthy firstly. Whether he gets back to football, I know that'll be a lot of thought, but hopefully he gets healthy.
Aye, and right thing to do, abandon the game. There's no way you can ask teammates to take the park and try and play when they're worrying about one of their teammates in the hospital. So I suppose the only thing for Arthurly, from an Arthurly point of view, it drops them further behind in terms of fixtures. But again, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Who cares as long as John's okay? Winning again, just a fantastic turnaround in the season. Kevin Kelly's got them at the top of that league, and the only game they've actually lost recently was the one I was at. So I don't know if I am a bit of a jinx when it comes to things like that. They get beat off Villa Clyde when I went to watch, but what a run they're on, doing so well at the top of the league. That's them now sitting 5 points clear, level games with Rutherglen, and they've actually got a game in hand over Renfrew. Kevin's done an incredible job at co-winning this season, hasn't he?
He's done a brilliant job, but I think that the co-winning fans and the committee also deserve a lot of kudos as well, because see, early on it wasn't easy for him. You know what I mean? It wasn't easy for him. There was you seen it. Obviously, we're all familiar, and there was talk about him not doing so well, and Corinne being a big club, and they went down, and there was this melee about the new manager coming in. But from what I've heard from the outside, you know, he's stuck to his beliefs and how he wants the team to play. He's recruited really well. They get Nathan Lennox out of Talbot, you get Aaron Boyd, and then I think Brian Boylan to front the line. You know, Brian's a Premier League striker with the greatest respect, but I think obviously he's got that personal touch with winning, so he's ended up there. And listen, they're going well. They're in great form, and rightly so. They're sitting currently top of the league, you know, and they've got a wee bit of a points cushion to third and fourth. You know, I think there's 5 or 6 points between them and third and fourth. So from the position that they're in at the moment, you would certainly say that they need to kick on and push on, and I've got no doubt that they will. They've got a good squad. You know, I obviously try to get some players in at Girvan, so I'm always looking at squads in the first division, second division, and who's on the bench and who's not playing, and their bench sometimes changes, you know what I mean? So they've obviously got 18, 19, 20 bodies there, but all pushing each other, and they're in a great spot at the moment. And listen, I don't think there's anyone, if they're being brutally honest, at the start of the season would have foreseen Kilwinning being top of the league after 21, 22 games, especially after the difficult start that they had. So, fair play to Kevin. He's doing a terrific job, and hopefully he can continue.
Yep, absolutely. Renfrew going down at home to Kilbirnie. Probably look on the outside, if you look at league positions, you would say that was maybe a wee bit of a shock. But I think if you look at, I was on the radio last week with Paul and the guys, and I asked them, do you think Renfrew are ready to get promoted and go into the Premier League? And his initial thought was no, despite how great a job Jimmy Quigley's done down there. And I think if you look at results like yesterday, they get beat off Irvine Meadow, they drew with Rob Roy, they drew with Blantyre, get beat off Thornywood, then they beat St Roch's last week, which is a great result. They beat Cumbernauld, but then they lose at home this week to Kilbirnie. It's just that inconsistency, those drop points that are maybe going to cost them if they trying to get promoted, isn't it?
Aye, I think it is. I don't think there's any surprise that Kilbirnie can go there and win. You know, I think Spenny's done a great job at Kilbirnie, a brilliant job that he's done there. And it's a fantastic club. You know, I loved playing there. I love playing against them. But from a Renfrew perspective, I believe that they got promoted last year. So they're in that league, you know. So to be in the position that they're going to be challenging up the top end of that league, you know, it's a credit to the management staff there. And listen, who knows? Maybe that will help them in the run-in. The fact that they've been in this position before, they know how to get over the line. But yesterday, obviously, as you said, Jonny, as you alluded to, certainly inconsistent results. But when you consider the teams that they're playing and the results that they're playing against, you know, it's not so much as a surprise as an outsider that Kilbirnie are going to Renfrew and winning.
I know it's just I was meaning just based on off the league positions. Do you know? I mean, the league, we know anybody can beat anybody. It's such a competitive league, and you're absolutely right. I was kind of teeing you up a bit, Coolburnley, because they've only had one defeat in the last 10, but they've just had too many draws. You know, and they've drawn 7 of their 18 games. You know, and that's just killed them, because if they'd found that bit of form, if they managed to turn 1 point into 3 a couple of times, they could have been right in the mix, despite what, like I said, what a good job Spenny's done. But it's just too many draws, isn't it?
There is a lot of draws, aye, there is. But listen, on the flip side of that, you know, you can still bang the drum about being unbeaten, you know, and there's a lot of games that they've no lost, you know, and if they're if they're not losing, then they're not losing any ground to the teams round about them. I know that they're mid-table, and I speak to Spenny most every couple of weeks, and I think that there's a wee outside chance of them going on a wee run and coming as a late surprise. I think it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they strung a run of results together and all of a sudden became a wee bit of a dark horse for the promotion spots. But it's a competitive league. And in any league, if you go 3, 4, 5 games winning on the bounce, as Ardea maybe alluded to later, it shows, you know, it takes you to a good place in the league. But listen, for Spenny, I think the job suits him. You know, I think the job kind of epitomises him as a player as well. You know, it's a real honest, integral club. It kind of gives you everything, and that's what certainly Spenny was, with a bit of quality as well. I hope it gives me a nice wee recommendation and for a nice glass of red after saying that.
You try to get a player.
I'm trying to get a player off him. I've been trying to get players off everybody, to be honest. That's how I'm on this podcast tonight.
It's interesting you say that, because I was doing some research before tonight, and I thought to myself, I wonder if they could go on a wee run and sneak up the top of the table. They're currently 8 points behind the kind of promotion spots. They've got games in hand, 3 games, 2 games, 4 games in hand over the teams above them. I think it's maybe just a bit too much, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe 4th, 5th towards the end of the season, and seeing how they finish. Down the bottom, I would look at Rob Roy and Maybole drawing 1 each. Again, it's probably a situation where Maybole will be happy with a point, because it keeps Rob Roy at arm's length in terms of being 4 points away from them. But a draw is kind of, you want to try and win these games against teams round about you, don't you?
You do, aye. As I found out yesterday, but aye, George is obviously in at Maybole, and he's obviously trying to get players in. You know, there's no secret that he was in a difficult position when he took that job, but I was delighted for him yesterday. You know, I was delighted that he's managed to get a point, especially going down to 10 men, losing Tommy for half an hour at the end of the game. Rob Roy's a surprise to me. You know, I thought that John taking that job, that they would have been in a much more commanding position in that league. All talk of the new stadium, which has been going on for a long time, but it's a real surprise for me to see them in such a difficult position in the league. I thought Gibby was phenomenal at Blantyre, and I've really seen them challenging at the top end of the league. So to look from the outside and see them down there at the bottom and, you know, in a difficult position in that league at the moment, you know, it's not nice to see. But listen, from a Maybole perspective, they'll definitely be happier with the point than I would say Rob Roy would.
Yeah, I think you're probably looking. You would just Ashfield and Blantyre are gone, so you're looking Meadow, Rob Roy, Vale of Clyde, Maybole, Cumbernauld probably sneaking into it as well. But one of those 3, you would suspect will get dragged down.
I agree, and I think Meadow's got enough, obviously, with Jamie getting in there to pull clear. Vale of Clyde, I think they've got enough. Big McD at the back and the management team, I think they've got enough. I know that certainly they've played more games than the others, but I think it will come out of Rob Roy and Maybole at the end, to be honest, and hopefully I've obviously got personal ties to Rob Roy, and I've also got my mates at Maybole, so I'm not going to pick a winner there.
I'm not going to make you, don't worry, I'll not put you on the spot.
You're right. Bottom 3, mate.
You're all right. I'll no press you into it. Okay, we'll just move on to the 2nd division now. Just a few comments on YouTube. Great. John Riley's just saying Royal Albert doing fantastic just now. We'll touch on them when we come to the 4th division. And we had a question asking what team you were with, Dean, but somebody's answered it, thankfully. So we've got 36 people now watching us on YouTube, which is class. So we're getting to second division. Results: Cali Locos 1, Lanark 5, Larkhall 8, Craigmark 1, Maryhill 2, Forth 4, Muircup 2, St Anthony's 0, Neilston 4, Kilsyth 0, Whitlets 5, Cambuslang 0, Yoker 2, Lesmahago 1. I want to start probably right in the middle of the table, which is a bit unusual, but I've saw a few things on social media in the last week or so. Cali Locos really kind of in a bad way financially, asking for support from the local area to try and help the club sustain their kind of day-to-day activities. So if you do happen to be listening and you can support Cali Locos in any way, then please go out and try and help them, because we don't want to see teams fall away at this level. Dino, it's a horrible thing to see teams in that kind of situation, and fingers crossed some people get behind them.
Aye, fingers crossed, Jonny, and I've got great sympathy with the guys at Cali Locals. You know, we tried to arrange a friendly with them early in the season, and I got to speaking to the management and some good people there, but I think that they're kind of held and a wee bit with the Thistle Trust and the stadium, and I think that there's maybe a lot of outgoings there. So hopefully they can get something sorted, because there's no doubt, obviously, with the name change and that, it doesn't make any difference. But hopefully the guys there, you know, they're obviously providing a platform for the young players, and I would hate to see that to go out the game. So hopefully, if you're in a chance, if you've got the ability to be able to help, then hopefully you do.
At the top end of the table, Dino, this is shaping up to be a really exciting two-horse race for the league, Neilston and Whitlets. So just touch on Whitlets first. Dino, I was actually at Whitlets yesterday to watch. I felt first half it was fairly even. I didn't think Whitlets played particularly well first half. I'm sure Graham had a few words with them at half time, because they came out certainly a better side in the second half. They went in 1-0 up thanks to a corner year header for a corner. But second half they just blew Cambuslang away, to be fair. So a really solid result for them, and they're absolutely flying at the minute. Graham's done incredible since he's went in there, hasn't he?
He started well, but listen, he's probably, from my outsider's opinion, get the best squad in the team, best squad in the league rather. So when you've got the best squad, it's easier to get results, certainly. But for whatever reason, obviously Mick decided to step away. And since he's went in, Graham, you can't argue with his results. But I'm far from Mr. Muircuck, but I think you've maybe done them a wee bit of discredit when comparing it to a two-horse race with Neilston and Whitlets. If my memory serves me right, and I'm not just looking at the league tables there, then Whitlets have played 4 games more than Muircuck, and they're only 6 points ahead. So, and what I will say is about the Muircuck side, and I've been kind of banging their drum a few times. You know, I actually tipped them to beat Talbot a few weeks ago, and I was wrong about that. But I think they've got a really young side. They've got a real settled side altogether. So I wouldn't be surprised for them to be in the top 2 come the end of the season, to be honest. I don't know too much about Neilston. I don't want to be too ignorant to the guys here, but obviously they're at the top of the table, so they're certainly doing a lot better than what I am. I was intrigued that they never drew a game all season, Neilston. And I found that interesting, you know, because away from home, with it sounding like Daniel Farke for Leeds, who I'm not a big fan of at the moment, away from home, a point's always a good point. So I was intrigued that they'd never drew any games all season. But for Whitlets, you know, they've got to be the title favourites for me going in. They've got the biggest budget, without a shadow of a doubt, in that league. And quite rightly, they're up at the top of the league, doing well. So hopefully they do. You know, I'm obviously living there now. They're the local team in there. I hope that they do well, and I hope that they push on.
No, you're absolutely right. Thanks for pulling me up there about Muircuck. I completely missed the games, to be fair, and we're hoping to have Ross on next week, so he maybe wouldn't have come on if I'd said that. So no, definitely, I'll see if I can get PG to edit this and go back and say, so a really exciting 3-horse race at the top of the league for this. No, but you're right. I saw a stat a couple of weeks ago. Muircuck's average age of their team that played was like 20 years old and stuff like that. I spoke to Ross a few times on the Saturday show, and the young boys just keep going. Even yesterday's result, just a really solid 2-0 win is against an experienced St Anthony's team as well. So no, I think you're right. I think you just be interesting to see what happens when the midweek games come in and things start, because you always get a few shockers in midweek, don't you?
It's always freak results through the week. And I think that obviously that becomes nature of the beast, obviously, at this level. But Listen, as you said, what a young squad that is, and that youthful exuberance might actually help them in the running. No worrying too much about winning leagues and winning promotions. It was just about playing their football. And they've obviously a group of players that have been together for 3-4 years now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the mix. But listen, it's a tight league. It's a tight league at the top, and then hopefully, as I said, Whitlets can go on and achieve well. Local team and that. So hopefully they do well.
Mm-hmm. Aye, and at the bottom, it's very tight as well. Craigmark are away, beat it 8-1 yesterday from Lark Hall, but you've got St Ant's 4th, Les Mahago, Cambuslang, all within 2 points of each other. Les Mahago, really 5 defeats on the bounce for them. That's not a run that you want to be part of, and things like that are happening, Dean. We've all been part of teams that losing games. It's not a nice place to be, is it?
Nah, it's not. And then listen, hopefully for the guys at Les Mahago and the management team, they get a win in. They can turn the screw. But obviously, just having a look at the league table earlier, Jonny, that's a really tight table at the bottom. Probably 5-6 teams there that could get sucked in. As you say, Craigmark's gone, but the Ants, I think they've managed to change the management team. But for me, with the bottom, Cambuslang have conceded a lot of goals. They've conceded a lot more goals, certainly than the teams run about them. So, and they've played a lot more games, so they could be one that gets sucked in. I know that Paul's done an amazing job there over the years, and he's a good guy, and I love coming against him in terms of football and that. He's good value, but it's disappointing that they're in that predicament because only 2 years ago they were a Premier League team. So, but it's tight.
I think what maybe saves Cambuslang is, for me, although they maybe didn't show it as much yesterday, but they looked as if they had a bit of a spark going forward. The boys at the top end of the park looked as if they could create, and they do score goals. I know they let a lot in, but they do score goals, and you know yourself when you're down the bottom, if you've got somebody that can score goals, it's priceless.
Well, I just looking at the table there, Lanark's 4th in the league, played the same amount of goals as Cambuslang, and they've only scored 2 more goals. So you're right, they've got firepower, and in those defining moments come the end of the season, that might be enough to get you a couple of points here and there, and get you over the line. But hopefully they stay up, Cambuslang. I'd like to see Paul stay up, certainly.
Perfect. Okay, mate, we'll move on to the 3rd division. Now, just before we go into Dino's division, we did this last week with Josh. A few questions. We'll get 5 questions for Dino, just to find out a wee bit more about him. Although I probably know the answer to all these questions, Dino, apart from maybe 1 or 2. So just tell us, it's funny because I was directly involved in this, but tell us a wee bit about your coaching journey and how you ended up at Girvan.
So my coaching journey, as soon as I read that, I thought that's a nice wee intro, Jonny. You've managed to do yourself a wee solid there and give yourself a wee bit of praise. But my introduction to coaching obviously was with yourself, Jonny, at Troon, when you'd asked me to come in and be your assistant manager when you were given the job in there, and that's something that I really enjoyed, working alongside you and working with Marty for the period of time that we did. So that was the kind of start of my coaching journey, and then from then in, the COVID kind of era where Jimmy was obviously, we were playing for nothing at that time, and Jimmy used that as a bit of experience for me to go and take the helm and do my own kind of stuff with the team at Troon. And I done that, and then laterally at Troon, obviously assisting Jimmy, and I loved that, and I was talking about it. I was thinking about it actually earlier, about how much I'm enjoying my coaching journey and that. But there's no doubt I miss working with Jimmy. I miss that interaction on a Saturday, of being on his team. We were on the same side for 13 years or so, and obviously we're still on the same side away for football. But I do miss that. But for the coaching journey, so now I ended up at Girvan. So I just decided at the end of last year at Troon that I decided that I wanted to kind of step away from football, to be honest. And it wasn't related solely to Troon. It was more related to the monetary value of the Premier League and the kind of falseness, and I thought that it lost its kind of identity a wee bit, to be honest, Jonny. That's my honest truth about it. I thought that the players were receiving a substantial amount of money, and I don't think that they were really putting the work effort in to kind of get that. And that's not related to Troon, because they're a good bunch of boys there. But so I was getting more frustrated about stuff that was out with my control as opposed to just focusing on the coaching and the development. So touched base with Jimmy. I spoke to him and just said that I was maybe going to step back, and then it kind of came out of the blue, the Girvan thing. Obviously, Big Flanny had decided that he wasn't going to take the job, and I think at that point it was kind of later in the summer, and they never had anyone. And I'm good mates with Scott Taylor, and Scott had said that they were obviously looking for a manager. And and I thought, I spoke to Jimmy about it. I said that listen, this is a situation, and I wasn't too sure about doing my own thing with management and that. But the advice that I was given from Jimmy and others was that, well, if you don't go and do it, then you're never going to really know for yourself. So I done it, and I've got to be honest, Jonny, I've loved it. I've absolutely loved every single minute of it. I was very fortunate that the people that at Girvan, the chairman, I've got a brilliant relationship with him. We see football the same, that it's a wee break, it's a wee release for every other aspect of your life, but also it's the most important thing in your life at the same time, when you're winning football games. So I was lucky with that, but that was my kind of coaching journey. I never really had my heart set on going into coaching and that and management, but I've really enjoyed that. I've got to enjoy working with a good group of players, and the boys have been unbelievable since I took that job, a real special group of lads, and I think that the bonds that I've created through that has definitely made it worthwhile, and I want to improve now. If you'd asked me this question 5-6 years ago, I would have been saying that, my professional career got curtailed because of a bad injury, and if I go into management, then I want to be better than what I was as a player. That would have been my ambition, because I feel as if my knee cut my career short, certainly professionally. But now I'm just happy to be involved in the game. I'm just lucky to be involved in the game. It's a fantastic environment that I'm in at the moment, and a real authentic group and a real honest group that I'm working with. And I think that's I've kind of found my love for football again by taking that step back through the leagues, Jonny.
Good, brilliant, mate. So tell us, what's your day job? How do you balance that with football? Although with you, it's more a night job most of the time, isn't it?
Oh, night or day. Preferably night. I get a bit more extra dough on them nights. But I work for, Jim Cutwood, the chairman of Troon. He has his own survey company, and Jim managed to, in the time that I was there, get me trained up to be a surveyor. So I'm a surveyor, land and mineral and utility surveyor. So I do that on a daily or nightly basis, and I still do that. And I was very fortunate to fall into that, Jonny. I was very, very fortunate that the guys managed to give me an opportunity, but I treat it with everything. I do my best every single day, and every day is challenging. But I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am.
Brilliant. Okay. What do you enjoy most about managing Girvan? You kind of touched on it there, but just the honesty and the kind of the relationship with the chairman and stuff. It looks like you've got a good thing going down there in terms of your relationships with everybody. Aye,
that's the thing. The relationships with people, Jonny. There's nobody there. There's certainly nobody there playing for money, at Girvan. And there's a bit more authenticity about the level of football, and a bit more about the grade, and we give everything Monday, Wednesday, and we prepare ourselves well. And Saturday at 5 o'clock, your weekend is still defined by if you win, if you draw, if you lose. But yesterday, we lost a obviously difficult game yesterday, but the perspective that I'm getting, these guys they're giving us absolutely everything. You know what I mean? So if sometimes we fall a wee bit short in results, does it really matter? Of course it matters in terms of football, but it's the manner of the defeats. There's not been anything that's been. I think the boys are just honest. I think if I was to describe what's the most enjoyable thing about managing Girvan is the honesty of the players, and the honesty of the opposition, and getting to know other different players. There's a lot of clubs this year that I've played that I've not played against before, managers that I've never competed against, players, top players, some top players in this league. So that's the thing. It's been a bit of an eye opener for me. That
brilliant. If you had a magic wand, what one thing would you change about the West of Scotland Football League?
I would make every club have to do a yearly accounts, and then we could find out if there was 25 bags or no. No, but on a
salary cap with the NFL.
The NFL, that's a wage cap. The one thing that I would change, I would have more Friday night games, Jonny, to be honest. I think that every club that's got the facility to have floodlights, then I think they should be encouraged to play on a Friday night. As a player, I loved it, under the lights. No matter what you're playing, if you're under the lights, you get your shoulders up,
Brilliant.
your shoulders are up, you've got the chin up, and I think the fans like it. So if I could change anything, then I would be that if your home stadium can host Friday night games, then you need to play Fridays.
I think it's. I know some teams don't like it because they say it takes away from Saturday hospitality bookings and things like that. But for me, you're right. It's a great opportunity to maximise. I mean, how many times do you go in the summer and you go to maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday and there's maybe 10, 20, 30% more people there than there would be because there's nothing else. You're the only game in town, so you can go along. So no, I think you're absolutely right. And if anybody's got any comments, feel free to put them in the comment section. If you've got anything that you would change about the West of Scotland Football League, I'd love to hear it. Finally, Dean, what's your ambitions for your coaching career?
I did think about that, Jonny, you know what I mean? And like I said, I alluded to earlier, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said that I want this and I want that. But I'm just lucky now to be involved in the game. I'm lucky that I've got my energy back, I've got my enthusiasm back. I don't take it for granted now, to be honest, Jonny. And I know that there's a lot of good people that are lost to the game for whatever reason, maybe lost a bit of love, maybe had a difficult time at a club and maybe a bad experience of that. So I don't really have too much ambition, mate. My ambition is just to continue to enjoy it because football's a magical thing, but I've been in the position where I've not found that. I've been in the position where football was a chore. I think we've all been there at that point. So certainly for me, the only thing that I can ask for myself is that I can continue to enjoy football, mate, and I'm enjoying it now immensely.
No, you're absolutely right. It's the best thing in the world. I miss it constantly. Not being involved with a club just now, although I love being able to do this and meet people and talk to managers and stuff, but I miss being out in the training park, out in the grass, having the carry on, the banter, seeing the boys and stuff. Brilliant, Dino. Listen, that was take 5 with Dean Keenan. Absolutely superb. Thanks, Dino. And now we'll move on to the third division. Results in the third division from Saturday: Ardere 2, Glasgow Pershore 0, Girvan 0, Glasgow United 1, Glenville 2, Kilsyth Athletic 2, Lugar 2, Glasgow Uni 3, Thorns 6, Fanart 0, Threave 2, Greenock 2, Vale Leaving 1, Dalry 1, and Wishaw 4, Irvine Vicks 2. We'll start with yourselves. Talk us through it. Disappointed?
Aye, disappointed, aye. The importance of the game, I've done a few obviously conversations with guys recently, and I spoke to you guys last week. And I'm trying not to get too bogged down with the league table, of course, but listen, I'm a realist. I know that the importance of the fixture yesterday. I think that they're in a false position, Jonny, to be honest. That they've got good players, and I think if early on in the prediction league, they'd have been right up the top of that. And yesterday we were just separated by a bit of quality, separated by a bit of brilliance. For David, obviously, that scores a good goal for them. Thought we started really brightly, 30, 40 minutes. I don't think they could have had a complaint if they were 3-0 down. But it's kind of been symptomatic of our performances so far this year that we've not kind of got ahead in games and we've not put teams away. And then they made a sub after 30, 35 minutes, made a great sub. They finished the half a wee bit better and then probably shaded the second half. But just from a long ball, obviously David takes a good cut of touches, gets one-on-one with the centre half, and it's ominous when he gets that. He's a top player and manages to score. But listen, we were low on bodies yesterday. It's not an excuse at all. They were probably low on bodies. I think if everyone is kind of low on bodies. But I thought that did they deserve to win? Who knows? But we certainly didn't deserve to win based on the second half performance. So it was tough. It was one of the games, Jonny, that my criticism after the games that we should be able to walk in and just say, listen, 0-0, one of the games, wasn't a great game. They asked questions of Glasgow United, to be fair to them, with the longer throws and quite direct, and they asked you a lot of questions and we defended resolutely, but for one, that one moment in the counter-attack, they managed to score. But I thought they had a couple of really good players. I thought the number 8, I'm sorry that I don't remember the lad's name, but I thought it was terrific. I thought it was outstanding in the game. But for me, obviously from our perspective, it's a home game that I was desperate to win, and we've not. But the inconsistencies that we've shown this year, we've won at Threave, we've lost at Glenville, we've got a point at Greenock, a home defeat. So, listen, it's Ardere away next week, so we'll dust ourselves down and we'll go and get a good account of ourselves next week, hopefully.
Yep. And talking about Ardere, they're not really nobody scary or anything, but they're on a really good run at the minute. Sean's got them flying. And I spoke to him just before Christmas, and he was just saying about or just after Christmas, sorry, and he was talking about the inconsistency. But that's him now 6 wins at the last 7. He's got them in a real good place at the minute, hasn't he?
Aye, listen, I'm no surprised at that. It was a competitive game at our bit early in the season. We managed to score late on to equalise, but it was a competitive game. But I knew that they'd done a level in them as well, RD, and Sean's done a great job there. And I listened, they're in good form, 6 out of 7. But and I touched on it in the conversation that I had with PG last week. My frustration last week wasn't regarding the fact that we'd been to Greenock and get a point, and it not been good enough. My frustration is that I believe that we are every bit as good as every single team in this division. Do you know what I mean? So, and we put in a performance last week that was certainly merited more. But next week we'll just need to go. Away from home again. We've been away from home the majority of the year so far. That was our first home game in 91 days on Saturday there. So that's a disappointment that we never managed to turn it into a home winner with a good crowd. But we'll go to Ardea, we'll give a good account of ourselves. We know that their strengths are. They'll know our strengths, we'll know their strengths. And then hopefully on the day we can just be a wee bit better than them and hopefully get a result.
Yep, I mean up the top end of the table. It's looking, I think Thorn are absolutely flying. I can't see anybody catching them. They're now 10 points clear. Greenock's got a game in hand, but I think you'd be looking Greenock, Ardea, Threave, Kilsyth, maybe Dalry, all kind of fighting for those 2 promotion spots up the top end.
I totally agree. Thorn are away for me. They've done enough. They've got enough points on the board, and they'll win enough games for between now and the end of the season to get through. Threave and Greenock, 2 each yesterday. Better point for Greenock than what it is for Threave. I know that obviously Greenock couple of draws in a row, but they've got a good squad. Gaz has recruited well the last wee while, bringing in James Marks and bringing in Frizz, known for Kilburnie, and that be extra bit of firepower to go with Taj up the top of the pitch. They've got a great goalie. The goalie's probably for me one of the best goalies out with the top flight for me. He's as good as I've seen. So I'm not surprised that Greenock's up there. Kilsyth, they beat us 3 times, twice in the cup, and one in the twice in the league and one in the cup. I think they could also sneak into the equation. I know that Thieves got a few games in hand on them and that, but I think that Kilsyth could still threaten that. But for me, the best team in the league is Threave that I've seen, that I've played against. Thought Thorn were good against us. Second half, they obviously changed and went a bit more direct, and I thought it was a really good game. I really enjoyed their game against Thorn. It was a good tussle. Obviously, we came out on the wrong end of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if the top 2 were Threave and Thorn, and then it's left for Greenock, Ardea and Kilsyth. But hopefully we put a dent in Ardea's title hopes this weekend.
Aye, I think you're right. I mean, I think the only thing with Threave, got a decent draw. They've got games in hand, but again, you're looking probably midweek with the travel that they've got to do. Now, if I just look at their fixtures, they've got Glasgow University at home midweek on the 30th of April, but they have to go to Lugar on the 7th of May, and then they have to go to Irvine Vicks on the 14th of May. So those will be interesting because that's a hell of a journey for a Tuesday or a Wednesday night.
It is. It really is. And, obviously they'll go with the new management as well and try to implement a new style of play. That'll probably suit Threave. But listen, for me, Threave, I think they're the outstanding team in the division. I think that the league forms...
Are you just saying that because you beat them?
Aye. Just so that the result looks a wee bit better.
Great team, brilliant team.
But they obviously winning. They beat Rob Roy, they beat Glenafton, going to Berwick Rangers. Berwick Rangers in the Lowland League, and they beat them convincingly 3-0 away for him.
And they pushed Stranraer in the Scottish Cup.
They should have beat the Stranraer. In all honesty, they'll be frustrated that they never. I think they're the outstanding team, but ultimately, it's all right being the outstanding team. You've got to get points on the board. Thorn have done that. Thorn are home and host for me, and they're a good bunch up there actually. So I'm pleased for them. The other spots are up there for grabs.
Threave will still to play Ardea twice as well, which will be interesting. Those two games could have a big impact on who gets those.
No, they're going to be huge. They're going to be huge.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Okay, good. And well, I suppose one thing I'd probably touch on Wishaw getting their first win in a while. Second win of the season. The first game against Luger actually, but or did they get a point against Luger 1-2? But the second win of the season. And Irvine Vicks, Ben will be so disappointed to win last week and get that monkey off their back, and then to lose against the bottom team. That'll be a sickener for Ben and the boys at Irvine Vicks, won't it?
It will be, because I watched their highlights against Glasgow United the week before, and they were actually really comprehensive in that game, and they could have been further ahead. And I've seen the celebrations in the touchline, and I was watching the game, and I'm thinking to myself, that could be a real turning point for them. Obviously, aware of the situation in regards to the league, and I'm thinking to myself, that could be one that we maybe need to, as a neutral, you would maybe look at Wishaw and Irvine Vicks and say it's going to be difficult to pull the teams in above. But when I seen that result last week and the performance and the manner of it, and all the teams celebrating down the touchline after the third goal went in, I'm thinking to myself, they could really, at home, draw a lot of results. They could maybe pull a few teams back into it. So Ben will be fuming. He'll be fuming. Wishaw, we went to Wishaw and won 5 or 6 recently, and really, really comfortable. I thought they were really poor. Real lacked an identity. They were trying to play out when it wasn't really on, and I think the players, and I think that they lost a bit of belief, and then obviously Aaron left thereafter. So, listen, they're on course for back-to-back relegations, if I'm right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they'll be absolutely buzzing with that result. I don't know who's went in there. Sorry, apologies.
No, they'll be hard, to be fair. No, they'll be hard.
I don't know who's went in there, but do you know what? Fair play to turn that round, and they'll probably be looking
at the job in the first place.
Sorry,
to even take the job in the first place, because
exactly. It's a difficult situation, but they'll probably now be looking on the way up. That takes them to within touching distance of Irvine Vicks. They win their game in hand, they go above Irvine Vicks, and then they might. Listen, you never know. If you can get a couple of bodies in, you can get a team that wins a couple of games, and it's going to put you in a better position, certainly, than what you're in.
Yep. No, absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to the 4th division. Last but not least, results from them: Campbelltown 1, Rossvale 5, East Kilbride 1, Saltcoats 7, Eglinton 4, BSC 0, Knightswood 1, Easterhouse 0, Newmains 1, St Peters 1, Port Glasgow 2, Royal Albert 1, West Park 0, Kello 0, and Giffnett 1, Carluke 4. Game of the day for me was definitely Knightswood v Easterhouse, and really important for Knightswood to bounce back after getting beat last week from Royal Albert, losing their unbeaten record at the top of the league. So, and a really important 3 points against third place Easterhouse.
It was, and credit to Royal Albert last week, what a win that was for them. But Knightswood, they've got top players, haven't they? They've got really good players. Kenny Marshall, I think Darren's still there, Darren Millen. They've got good players. And obviously they're up at the top of the league, and I thought it was an interesting battle. I think they played Port. They beat the Port a few weeks ago, if that's right, if my memory serves me right. And then thereafter they lost a game that they probably would have been expected to win. So that was a big game against Easterhouse. My younger brothers at Easterhouse, and I know that they've got a good squad there, and they ran Troon really close in one of the cup competitions earlier in the season. And they'll in their own right be challenging for the promotion slots in that league. But Knightswood, good players, good players at the top end, and certainly they'll be looking now, and I think they're in a really comfortable position, certainly to get promotion, but obviously to go on and win the league. I think there's a bit of distance between them and the Port now, so I think that Knightswood are going to be champions.
I mean, I'm going to say this one is a 2-horse race, definitely. Okay, Knightswood and Port Glasgow are sitting in 56 and 52 respectively. And then you're back to 38 at Kello and Easterhouse. So it's going to be really tight. But again, even Port Glasgow losing to 2 Knightswood, but then bouncing back with a couple of strong results, beating Royal Albert, who are really in form, with the Royal Albert chap saying there was 10 players injured for the first 6 games, which has cost them. But their form in the last few has been incredible. Great result last week. So Port Glasgow will be pleased to get another 3 points on the board and just keep that pressure on Knightswood, and then we can see what happens.
Well, that's it. They both get 90 play, haven't they? And the Port's got good experience, Chris Miller, Mark Miller, Alec McWaters, Sean Rogers. They've got top players. top players. There's players that could play probably Premier League Championship in this, and certainly in the West of Scotland Football League. There's no doubt about that. And we played them in a friendly, and they were good. You could tell straight away they're good. They've got the astro, they play good football. But listen, they've done enough to get promoted. But as you say, Jonny, I think if they go unbeaten to the end of the season, they've got a chance. Yeah, that's obviously a statement of the year there for me. But I think Knightswood's done enough. I think that Knightswood will just pull clear. But credit to both teams, and certainly hopefully we can maintain our place in the third division this year. And two good teams coming up. It's going to be a competitive league again next year, as it always is.
Yep, and a team that's kind of going about their business pretty quietly, probably because they're not the best in social media in terms of keeping things up to date. But Kellow Rovers obviously come down last year, sitting in third now on 38 points, 2 games in hand over Easterhouse, who had 11 points, and 6 in front of Rossvale on level games. So Greg's done a really good job down at Kellow and in a good position to take them back up. Dino, you went on mute, mate.
They have, Jonny, sorry, mate. They have, and they've done really well. And I've been keeping tabs on them, obviously, trying to recruit players. You're always looking for teams around about you. And they've got, obviously, Greg scored 15 goals for them this year already in the league. So they've obviously got a bit of firepower there. And they're up there, they're going to be competing there for that last slot. I think, as you said earlier, Jonny, 2-horse race to the title. But that third place, that's going to be competitive. That's going to go to the wire between Easterhouse, them. I don't know if there's any other clubs that can maybe.
I would say Rossvale are sitting there 6 behind at the minute, but they've got 2 games in hand over Easterhouse. They're level with Kellow, but they've got 2 games in hand over Easterhouse, so they could probably put themselves back in the mix.
I should have probably checked that after Josh being on last week, to be fair. But listen, they could come into the mix, but I think for me, if I was to pick someone, I think that Easterhouse, Knightswood, and hopefully it's got to be the top 3. I think Kellow. I don't know why. Like you say, Jonny, I just think there's maybe, and it's wrong of me to say, obviously, but there's maybe just no that romance with regards to Kellow as opposed to other clubs. I think it's maybe because I've been down there and get beat a couple of times. Maybe that's the case.
Well, I was down there once and get headbutted by a supporter, so I don't know if that counts.
Well, thoroughly deserved, I heard as well. But listen, if you've got to take your hat off to them, though. They're up there. Obviously, came down last year. I don't know a great deal about the recruitment in that, but they're third in the league, Jonny. Do you know what I mean? So, and the 2 teams above them have recruited really, really well. They've got some top players. So, you've got no doubt that you've got to give them a bit of credit. And that's going to go to the wire. There's a few that are going to go to the wire. That's one that would probably, similar to the bottom end of our league, the top end of that league is going to go to the wire as well.
Yep. And a last thing, just before we finish up, I'd just like to touch on Stevie Wilson and Saltcoats. What a great job he's done since he's went in there. We all know that the struggles in terms of getting boys in and stuff like that. Winning 7-1 away to East Kilbride yesterday. I think that's them now 1 loss in the last 6. Stevie's done a great job in there.
Brilliant job, and he's a top manager. Obviously he spelt a Dawson, but he had a really successful team. And then he took the job at the Port, and obviously ended up leaving the Port, and he's now back at Saltcoats. But I've got to be honest with you, Jonny. When I seen that he took the Saltcoats job, I wasn't surprised that they started to win games. I wasn't surprised. I know that he's obviously got a top. He's obviously a top manager, but I knew that he'd be able to pull players in, and he'd be able to pull staff in and create an environment there that people wanted to go. So I was delighted for them. They've obviously had a tough few years. Saltcoats, looking in from the outset, a lot of heavy defeats. So to see them win 7 games this year and in a comfortable position in that league, 6 or 7 games, and then obviously a brilliant win yesterday. So I delighted for Stevie. He's a top guy, and it's great that he's back involved in the game.
Yep, brilliant. Okay, Dino, just a couple of things for the comments. Jordan Banks, Big Banksy, wants to know what you thought about that nonsense Leeds served up today, but we'll not talk about that because we're here to talk about real football. Dreghorn Moorfield saying, should the West of Scotland be made smaller and remove clubs without grounds, teams spending big on players but no pitch to maintain, etc. My view on that is that if you want to enter the West of Scotland and you don't have your own park, there should be a time frame of which you should achieve that in order to maintain your status in the West of Scotland. That's just my opinion. You should be working towards it, and you should have a clear plan in place to have your own ground and have your own pitch. What do you think, Dino?
Aye, 100%. It's not fair on other clubs, you know what I mean? They've got all the costs of running their own football ground, and then you can pay a nominal fee to play somewhere else for a year and then just spend an inflated budget on players and get through the leagues, and then get to a point where you can't spend any more money and you have to cut back and then ultimately end up in a position that a few teams have been in previously. So listen, 5 years or something, you know, you could say 3 years, you could say 5 years. There's got to be some sort of thing, you know, because it's not fair on top clubs that are paying top dollar to maintain their facilities and rent and everything else, and then all of a sudden other teams can just kind of float through the system. It's not right.
Brilliant. Okay, Dino, listen, thanks very much. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody that's tuned in on the live stream on YouTube. This will be available to watch after the fact, and it will be released on audio form on all your major podcast networks. But Dino, thanks very much for coming along. Really enjoyed your insight, getting to know a wee bit more about you, even though I probably knew it all. And then your opinions on the goings on over the weekend. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Thanks for being here, Jonny. Thanks for inviting me, and all the best for the show, mate.
Brilliant. So remember to follow us on X. I'm at WOSFL Weekly at JBaillie22. Dino's on X at DeanMK85. Her 131 goals over 36 games in the West of Scotland Football League this weekend equates to 3.6 goals per game on average. So if you're looking for a local game to go and watch, find your local West of Scotland Football League team, dig out a tenner and go and watch them, because you will be entertained. Thanks very much for joining us. Until next week, I'll see you then. Same place, same time. Goodbye.